All right, so we're ready to get started. Thank you for listening to my little spiel. And again, if you have any questions, please reach out. So one of the it's something that comes up with people when we have people that come to talk about organizing, and the paper thing comes up all the time. So and we know, some of you may know Victoria from the past. She's been to a aging in place seminar at Edgemont. She did a segment there, and I think it was worth revisiting and really kind of diving deeper into our pile of papers. If you've ever watched a hoarding show, if you feel like, and we've had people come to talk about decluttering, the paperwork trips people up because you feel like you have to save things. You feel like I have my own bill paying system that if something happened to me, no, my wife would be like, I don't know what to do. What do I do? I just write paid on things and then I save them for what reason I don't know. But anyway, our guest today is a daily money manager, and she has a business called Tender and Timely Daily Money Management, and she serves clients in the New Jersey, New York area. And what she does is she does bill paying, financial organizing, budgeting, and all
Mm.
kinds of administrative tasks. And she is here today. She works with seniors, particularly, and lots of busy professionals, disabled adults, college students, anyone who hates paying their bills, and anybody who hates paying late fees more than my wife will tell you that's the reason I got the job, because we don't pay late fees anymore. Without further ado, please welcome Victoria Schrager.
Thank you, Michelle. So can everybody hear me okay?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So I like to run my webinars very freely. So if anybody has a question, you can just kind of cut me off. I'm not that sensitive. And if it's in the presentation, then I'll just let you know that I'll get to it. Otherwise, I'll try to respond to your question. Um, so as you can see here, I have a photo up this is my mother's kitchen table. So I noticed there's somebody on the call that said their name on their marker there says Felice's iPad, and Felice was my mom's name. I just lost her a few months ago, unfortunately, but she was getting on in years, so she had a full life. But this is her kitchen table, and this is after I spent about 3 hours um, cleaning the table off. So this was kind of the end of stuff that I still had to deal with. But she was living with a lot of paper. And, you know, as we age, our paper just starts to stack up. And if we don't know how to deal with our paper, it's just going to keep stacking up. So in my mom's case, she was pretty much someone who couldn't part with any paper at all. She thought everything had value and saved absolutely everything. And I am now dealing with the outcome of that behavior. So it's been challenging. So just to give you a little bit about me, hold on, okay, hold on. So this is a little bit about me. As Michelle introduced me, my company is called Tender and Timely Daily Money Management. I'm Victoria Schrager. I live in Bergen County, although I did once, many, many years ago, live in Belleville. So I did live in Essex County once. Um, I am a member of the American Association of Daily Money Managers, as well as the Greater New York chapter. That's this logo here, Adam. And my practice covers Northern New Jersey and New York. And my background before I came into daily money management, which I had never heard of before, I was a business systems analyst working with computer systems in the healthcare industry. So um, the goals for today's talk are, first off, to define what I mean by papers and documents, just for the purposes of this presentation. Suggestions on how to take control of intake, and suggestions for future control. And as I said, if anybody has questions or thoughts, you can sort of cut me off and ask. So for the purposes of the presentation, when I talk about paper, I'm talking about bills, statements, tax documents, letters, but more, not personal letters, incoming mail other than above, receipts, including ATM receipts, bank receipts, credit card receipts, magazines, newspapers, playbills, paper. Paper coming in mostly through the mail. Okay, so the first thing that I just want to point out is that the recycle bin is your friend. And I say that because I think that a lot of us are afraid to just take something into the house and recycle it right away. But my recommendation is to have a recycle bin wherever you take in the mail and immediately drop things into it that you think are not going to, that you're not going to use, that you're not going to need. Because I think that will save you a lot of time later on to when you start to see piles. It takes 1 week, you've got a big pile of mail. So my recommendation is anything that you look at that if you don't shop at Bed Bath & Beyond, then recycle the offer right away. If don't smoke cigars, then recycle that cigar catalog that you just got, etc. If you're someone who likes to hang on to playbills and you just, well, obviously during the pandemic, we're not going to plays, we're not holding on to playbills, but if you are someone who's holding on to those things, put them in your file system right away if you want to hold on to them. After seeing my mother's playbills from, 70 plus years of going to the theater, I'd say, I don't know what to do with them. They're all, unfortunately for her, memories, I guess. They're her memories, not mine. So I had to recycle them. My suggestion also is that you can take things out of the envelope, recycle the envelopes. You don't need envelopes. I know a lot of people like to hold on to envelopes. They think that if there's a date that it was stamped from the post office, that's meaningful. Unless it's a super, something legal, it's not generally needed, the envelope itself. So in terms of what, letters coming in that are insurance offers or things like that, sometimes we might think, oh, we have to pay this, this is real. Just take a moment and read it again just to make sure that it is real, because a lot of times these offers or these warnings or bills that we owe money for insurance or whatever, you really have to look carefully at things because they may not be real. I suggest a letter opener in the mail reception area. This is an old-fashioned one. I use the kind that has a magnet on it. I put it on my refrigerator, and I always know where it is because I'm always losing. Otherwise, I'm always losing my letter opener. So I keep it on with a magnet on the back on the fridge. It's super helpful. I always know where it is. I always stick it back on the fridge. It's always there. I also recommend that you have an in basket. That's what this photograph is, in case you might have been wondering, so that you can keep the bills and the things that you do need to work on in a neat pile, either in the kitchen or the office or wherever you're putting them. But that's kind of your to-do place. That's where you're going to put things that you have to do something with. Okay, so this up here is a picture of a bill. Lately, I just want to warn that the payees are getting very kind of mysterious with the bills. What's happening, I'm finding, is if you're someone who pays your bills on the due dates, a lot of times the payees, the invoicers like Verizon and PSE&G and the credit cards especially, they are billing you before the due date of the last bill. So if the last bill was due on the 10th of September and you paid it on September 10th, they might be cutting their invoice to you for the next month, for last month's bill, if it's a credit card, let's say, on the 8th of September. And if they didn't get the payment yet, which wasn't technically due, they're going to bring forward that balance and tell you that you owe them last month's payment plus this month's payment. And I'm finding this more and more for many of my clients' bills and my own, that it's confusing. When I look at the amount that's due, I say, gee, that's awfully expensive. And then when I look more closely at the bill, I see that they're bringing the balance forward from the last month and adding it to the current month. So my recommendation is just to make sure that you're confirming the amount of the bill before you go ahead and just assume that that's a correct amount and pay it, because these companies are getting notorious, really, for kind of misleading us as to how much we really owe them. So I don't know, and I can't see everybody, unfortunately, because let me see if I can see.
Victoria, I have a question about auto pay.
Okay. Hi, Camille.
Hi. The problem is I use auto pay for everything. For some strange reason, my management association has been charging me my rent twice each month. And they are holding 5 months in reserve. I want that money, so I stopped the payment and did that through the bank. And I'm hoping they will, but I don't believe it's going to work. I'm hoping they will use my reserve for that. Because each time I go to my portal, it says, owe no funds. You have so many $1,000s here, you owe nothing. But then they still withdraw 2 rents from my checking account. Okay, this may be too much of a problem.
Yeah, I mean, Camille, you're more than welcome to call me. I will put my information in the chat. And you're more than welcome to call me. I also have a website, and I'll certainly give you 20 minutes of free consultation. If you want me to look at something with you, we might be able to figure out what the problem is.
Okay.
So,
we'll wait until October to see if they pay my rent twice.
Well, yeah, but we can, I'll certainly be happy to discuss it with you.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. So I don't, as I said, unfortunately, I can't see everybody because I'm showing this screen. So if I stop sharing for a second, let's see, I think I can. Now I can see whoever is. There's only a few of you, actually. Gloria and Jennifer and Camille are really the only ones who are showing themselves. It looks like Alice has a bird on. Anyway, if anybody, has any thoughts or anything, want me to stop for a moment, I can. Otherwise, I'll go back to sharing. But I will also give you my phone number and my website address, tenderandtimely.com. Okay, so that's in the chat for you, and I'm going to go back to sharing my screen. Hold on, let me get there. Okay, everybody can see my screen? No. All right, hang on a sec. Let me just share. Okay, everybody sees my screen again, right?
Could you tell us your phone number that disappeared?
It's in the chat. So
okay, I'm not seeing it there.
You may have something that's no. Okay, we'll get to that afterward. Okay, So I don't know how many folks are using online banking, but my recommendation is to use online banking because I think for many reasons. And one of them is that it keeps us independent for as long as possible. And I recommend that for all of my clients, although I do have some clients up until the pandemic who continued to want me to write checks and they would sign the checks. But I have several who I was able to convert to online banking, and they work. They enjoy it. They like to see what's going on, and they like the usability of online banking and the functionality that it offers, because it's a live look at what's going on with your bank and your money, as opposed to getting paper statements which are static. So my recommendation with the bills as they come in is on every couple of days, when you have things in your in basket and you've got bills, you can just set them up for payment. You can set them up for payment using the future due date. You don't have to set it up with the date that you're paying it today. You can actually set it up for a future due date. So there's a lot of nice features about using online banking. You can also look back at the transaction record online and see what you've already paid. So for example, what I was talking about with the credit card statements, you can always look back at the online bank transactions and see, hey, wait a minute, I did pay that last month, so I can cross out that amount and just pay what I owe for this month. If you're not someone who wants to use online banking, then you can always pay by check. And my recommendation is to sit down and write checks every 2 weeks. I don't think you need to do it daily or even weekly. Every 2 weeks should be adequate in terms of keeping up with the bills. If you sit down and you're somebody who wants to write checks, that's my recommendation. In terms of filing bills, there are two approaches. Some people file their bills once they pay them in that month's bill. So for example, if it's a bills from September, once it's paid, they put it into a September folder, September 2020 folder. The majority of us, and what I do for my clients as well, is I set up file folders for each payee, and I just drop that into the file folder. However, what's nice about filing by month is that there are a lot of bills that you really don't need to hold on to. Some people say that once they get the phone bill in September, they throw out or they recycle August's. So some people keep no paper at all, especially because these days with the standard billing that we have, credit cards, PSE&G, the cable company, Verizon, the cell phone, et cetera, all of those relationships if you have an online account with them, you can always go back and see those bills online. Most of these companies keep 18 months to 24 months of past bills online, accessible without any kind of interaction, having to request to see copies. Some keep more. Banks also, they keep about 18 to 24 months online, accessible without any kind of request. If you need more than that, then you're going to want to probably you would have to request it from them. The only thing that I would say in terms of bank statements is that if you think that you might eventually go on Medicaid, you need 60 months of statements for Medicaid look back. And what that means is that, if you're 70 today and, in 2 years, you think you might run out of money and you might have to go on Medicaid, my recommendation is to keep all of your bank statements for 5 years prior to that. So from the age of 68 to 72, when you apply for Medicaid, you'll want to keep that. And those are the laws today. They could change tomorrow. Um, but in terms of, um, credit card statements, they don't look at credit card statements. They're not interested in your cable statements or anything like that. It's all on the bank statement. I'm talking about specifically about going on Medicaid and the look back documents that they're looking at. In terms, okay, let me keep going. Any questions or anything?
Um, I think they are concerned mainly with income. So
Right.
that is why they want those statements.
Right, exactly. But they can, they can look at things and decide, wait a minute, we need a deep dive of information on that. And you may have to provide other documentation, but
Okay.
it's typically not going to be, what you paid for your electric bill or your telephone or your cable, that kind of thing. It's typically going to be something like a purchase. I believe they say any purchases over $2,000 or what they're really concerned with. So, um, so what time is it? Because I don't want to run out of time. It's 2:06. So I'll just keep going, but I don't want to get. I can get very. There's a lot of information, so I'll try to get through as much as I can without overwhelming everyone. Um, so this is just a little bit about medical bills because once you go on Medicare, everybody has got Medicare explanation of benefit. EOB stands for explanation of benefit. So most of us have Medicare. We have secondary insurance. And then for any doctor's visit, you're going to get a bill from the doctor or a bill from the facility, and you might also get a pharmacy RX bill. You might also have various receipts from the pharmacy. So there are a lot of papers associated with our medical bills these days, and for my clients, what I do is I set them up with a folder. I have a folder system, one for the Medicare explanation of benefit, one for the secondary insurance, one for the bill from the doctors, one for the doctor's bills all together. I don't keep separate doctor's bills, like one for each, the podiatrist and the cardiologist. I keep all the doctor bills together. So my recommendation is to keep a separate folder for each of these sets of documents. It just makes it easier to manage. And my other recommendation is not to pay the doctor bill until you've gotten the Medicare explanation of benefit and the secondary insurance explanation of benefit, because a lot of times the doctors may not have, especially if it's a newer doctor or if you changed your insurance companies, they may not have the most recent information on file for you, and they may be billing you without having gotten the monies back from the insurance company. So we just want to, when you get a doctor bill, you want to make sure that you're seeing that Medicare reimbursement credit. You want to see the secondary insurance credit. And you also can verify those amounts on the Medicare explanation of benefit and the secondary insurance. And that's often quite thick papers that are coming back to you from those providers or the insurance companies. But they're very explicit. And when you review them, or if you need help reviewing, I just, in fact, finished a medical billing project for somebody who was a member of the Edgemont House. So he was drowning in medical paperwork. And so I helped him sort through all of that. And there were a lot of bills that just had not been properly managed by the doctor's office. And he did not owe any monies. He owed some money, but very little ultimately. So yeah, so medical bills are overwhelming. So my recommendation in terms of medical document and record retention is any kind of reports that you have, like you get blood tests, they give you back all the paper results in that. You have metrics, any kind of medical reports from visits that really have any content in them. I would keep all of those for life. I think it's always helpful to go back. In fact, I just had a doctor's appointment with a GP. They did a full blood work on me, and I found those results very interesting because I also have my old results, and I was able to look at, and I happened to find something 6 years ago, and I was able to look at it and compare the two and see how much weight I've gained, and I actually lost a little weight. But and how, my cholesterol. Okay, so that's good to know. What are my cholesterol numbers? What are my HDL? What were they 6 years ago? What's my LDL, etc. So it's always good to keep all of those all of those reports. I also recommend saving mammograms and other radiography. If you have a doctor, they might, a new doctor, they might want to see that. I know mammograms, they always want to see, the past mammograms. Usually the doctor's offices do have those, but, you can keep them as well. So medical bills and expenses can be tax deductible, and that's a big maybe, because it has to be. Now, this was from 2019. Your medical expenses had to exceed 7.5% of your adjusted gross income to be eligible for deduction, itemized deduction. So, you can collect the data for the year on what you paid, and if it exceeds that 7.5% number, your accountant will be able to itemize. What I do for my clients is I track those on a spreadsheet. I do track their medical expenses and bills on a spreadsheet, and co-pays and all that stuff, so that as well as their premiums, because ultimately at the end of the year, if it has been an expensive year in terms of their medical expenses, then there is reason to itemize. Okay, so this is just a little bit about income taxes. I am not an accountant, and I recommend, this is just to give you an idea of documents to keep for income taxes. I do help my clients with tax preparation. I don't do taxes, but I do prepare the documents for the accountants. So 1099s, that's going to be your income statements, your any kind of distributions that you've gotten, etc. Your W-2s, if you're working, you're going to have W-2s. Your mortgage statement, if you have mortgage statement, your real estate tax statement. Now, a lot of this, as I was saying earlier, I keep OOP. Oops, sorry. Oh, going the wrong way. OOP stands for out-of-pocket expenses. So on a spreadsheet or a document, you don't have to use a spreadsheet. I use a spreadsheet because I love Excel and I think it's easy to find things on spreadsheets. But if you're not a spreadsheet person, you could just write it down on a piece of paper, or if you're computer savvy and friendly, you can just keep it on a document and just keep updating the document with the figures that you have spent for doctors and drugs. Donations. miles driven for charity, moving expenses. There are a lot of things that you can deduct, and your accountant will let you know whether it's worth it for you to itemize your tax return or not. In terms of bank statements, utility bills, or other bills like that, unless you have a business and you're tracking those for business expenses, you really don't need to keep those documents for tax purposes. In terms of credit card statements, if you're putting a lot of expenses onto credit card statements, it might be helpful to keep those credit card statements for the year so that you can always look back at it and see what you spent the money on. What I do is I pull down a yearly summary at the end of the year to see what I spent on my credit card and see if there's anything on there that's tax deductible. But I'm a computer person, and I have online, I'm comfortable online pulling all these reports. If you're somebody who's still more comfortable with paper, you can always, track and record things on paper. Okay, so this is a picture of a shredder. So I do not like to just recycle documents that have my personal information on it. So I wait for shredding events. I don't know if people on the call are familiar, but pretty much most of the counties in New Jersey have shredding events. And they actually bring a truck in. And these days under the pandemic, and I've done this twice since the pandemic began, you put the papers, whatever you want to shred, in your trunk. You drive in, they open your trunk, you unlock the trunk, they open it, and they just take everything out from the back, and you don't even touch it. And they don't touch you, and that's it. They're wearing gloves, they take the stacks of paper out, and they feed it into a garbage can that then lifts up into the machine and takes the shredding, and it just shreds everything. It's wonderful. And we're 50 pounds lighter from paper, and also resting more secure in the knowledge that our personal information is not just being put into the recycling bin and anybody could see it. It's actually being shredded. And I personally feel much safer knowing that, my personal information is being shredded. So I hold on to things. They usually have these events about twice a year. So you just can look online at your sanitation department or the county sanitation department and see when the next shredding event is. I have a little bit more here. If people want, I can open it up to questions, or I can keep going. So I'm just gonna stop sharing for a second so I can see the gallery and see if people want me to keep going, or if you want me to keep going, raise your hand, or if you want to stop and ask questions. Okay. Gloria said, and Jennifer both want me to keep going. Camille, do you have any questions? I can't hear you. You're muted.
The last, will we be able to see your presentation
Online?
when you're gone? Yeah.
So I have to think about that, honestly, because it's really proprietary.
Yes.
And
it's only the last page that you showed that I thought would be helpful to keep.
Okay. I can, you mean you want me to, I don't mind sending it to you if you want me to send you the last page. You mean you're talking about the page that I just showed about what to keep and what to shred? Okay. All right. I do have a document that I give out at the end of my talks in the library when I was doing them. Let me see. Is that it? Yeah. I'll pull something together and I'll share that with Michelle and she can share it with the group. I would be comfortable doing that.
Thank you.
Sure, sure. So let me go back to my presentation. Share that again. All right, you guys can see the presentation again?
No.
No, hold on. How about now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Is this the document that you wanted me to share? Is this what you were thinking?
Mhm.
Okay. Okay. So this, oops, sorry. So the next couple pages are, I put it at the end because I wasn't sure how much time, I was going to have, and I didn't want to put people to sleep either. So, so these are recommendations from the AARP magazine from September and September issue 2019. Wow, that's a year ago. So they said, paper banking and investment statements, you can keep them 1 year or less if you're comfortable tossing them. Because at the end of the year, you should be getting a yearly summary at least for your investment statements. They typically give you, and the banks don't necessarily, some of them do. So if you're comfortable, you can toss those paper statements. As I said earlier, you can always get them from the computer. Electronic statements. So anytime that you want to download statements, you can from the online sites. And if you're somebody who likes to keep the statements downloaded, you can give them a name if that you are going to find them with easily, and put them in a folder on your computer that you're going to find them with easily, and then save them to a password protected file if you like. Some of you may not know how to do a password protected file. That may be something I could come back with Michelle. We could talk about maybe, some computer things if people are interested in knowing how to do things like that. We could talk about that. Canceled checks. So I don't know if anybody is getting any physical canceled checks anymore. I haven't gotten any in years. Most of my clients who get paper statements, they're getting an image of the canceled checks. You can also see them online, the checks that you wrote. So all the banks have different ways of showing you what's happening with your transactions and your interactions with the bank. So every bank, has sort of some different version of what they show you if you go on and log into the bank and look at your transactions. So I can't tell you exactly what you'll see, but most of the banks will have a copy of it. If you write checks, most of the banks will show you a copy of what that check, looked like when you wrote it. Stock or bond purchases, after you sell and report that sale to the IRS, you're going to want to keep that for 6 years. Although I guess they can come after you for 6 years for certain things. Most things, I think the statute of limitation these days with the IRS is 3 years, but don't count on me. I'm not a CPA. So as I said earlier, if you might apply for Medicaid one day, you'll need a 5-year look back on everything, especially bank statements and investment statements. So just keep that in mind for your personal self. Tax returns. Again, this is from the same art issue last year. They say keep for 3 years after file date. So obviously this year, some of us filed 2019 taxes on September 15th. So you'll want to keep that until September 15th, 2023. Okay. If you're self-employed or you have complex tax returns, you'll want to keep them for 6 years. If you own your own home, you'll want to keep these renovation and repair receipts, it says, for 7 years after selling, in case you owe back taxes on the sale, or taxes on the sale. So I mean, this is rare, but that's what they're recommending, 7 years. So that's what I wrote down. This is from Sue Zorman. Pretty similar, but a little different. You know, she's got her own ideas about things too. So if anybody wants, I can put this, hold on. Whoops, sorry about that. Let me see if I can put this. I wanted to put that link into the chat box. It's basically SueZorman.com. If I write it, it's going to take me off of the slide. So I can put that in afterward. Let me just make a note. Okay, I'll go back to it. So this is what she says. She says once you've seen the information on a statement or online, you can dump ATM receipts and bank deposit receipts. So if you are holding on to receipts, credit card also, once you see these things on statements for the month, you don't need to keep them. ATM receipts are pretty generic these days. They no longer show you balances. They used to have they used to show you the balance. Most of the banks have minimized the amount of data that's on an ATM receipt. It's only usually like the last 4 digits of the account number. There's no name on there. So just look at the receipt. Make sure there's no data on there that's personalized. And if it's not, go ahead and just recycle or toss it, depending on what kind of paper it is. It may not be recyclable paper. Can you tell I'm a big recycle fan? I know I've said that word a lot today, but I really, we need to, save our earth. Anyway, so bank statements, Sue Zorman says throw them out after a year or less. They are available online. So she, that's what she thinks. I say do what you're comfortable with. If you want to hold them 3 years, hold them 3 years. It's a long time. You don't need to. But if you feel more comfortable that way, do what you're comfortable with. Quarterly investment statements, you can throw them out or wait until you have the annual summary. They're available online. Utility bills, you can throw them out after 1 year unless you're using them as a deduction like a home office, and then you need to keep them for 3 years. Now, she says that throw them out after 1 year. I say you don't even need that. If you're comfortable online, you can go back for what I said here, VDS, that's me. My information is that I looked online at the PSE&G website, since most of us are Jerseyans and have PSE&G, and they have 15 months of past bills to view online. So, and if you need something more than that, you can get bills 24 months back. So I don't know if anybody on the call ever goes back and looks at their utility bills other than to confirm what they paid, that the bill is paid. So so that is basically what I've got for today. So if anybody has any questions or comments or anything they want to say, I'd love to hear from you.
Victoria, it's Marie Claire. Can you tell us how you set up those automatic bill paying process? Is that something you do through your bank, or do you set it up with the individual company?
So I typically, for myself and my clients, I like to have control over my bills and my bill paying. So I do what's called a push. There's the push and there's the pull. So push is when I send things out. Pulling is when I enable my billers to pull from my account. Okay, so that's where you give them your routing number and your account number so they can pull the amounts directly from your account. A lot of the bill relationships these days, they're starting to force you, if you want to pay electronically, they don't. So it gets a little complicated, and it's easy to sort of get confused about what the relationship is, because as I said, there is the push and the pull, and not everybody is allowing us to push anymore. Most of the banks have relationships that are electronic with most of the larger invoice companies. So for example, Optimum, Verizon, even Medicare, okay? So you can set up your Medicare premium, for example, to be pulled directly from your bank account. Or you can set up Medicare to be pushed from your bank account. It's the same ultimate payment, but one is controlling, where you're pushing and setting it up. And if I have, for example, AARP United Healthcare, a lot of my clients have that for their secondary Medicare insurance carrier. So it's somewhere, let's say it's $195 a month. So what I do is I push that payment from my bank account on a recurring basis. So I don't have to go in every month and push the payment, set it up to be paid. If it's the same amount every month, then I set it up at the beginning of the year, $195 to be paid on the 5th of the month, and it just automatically goes, and I don't have to worry about anything. But some of the invoice companies, for example, Verizon is charging us less if we enable them to pull from our account. And because they're already making too much money, quite frankly, if you ask me, I let them pull. I said, all right, fine. If I'm going to save $15 a month by allowing you to pull that money from my account, $15 is worth it for me to do that. So I make decisions based on whether my bank is going to be able to manage the relationship well, and it lets me set it up on a recurring basis, and it's easy, and it's working. I can warn you that some of the relationships are, some of the invoicers are getting very crafty, and they much prefer a relationship that they pull from your bank account. American Express, for example, I have a client who the bill was due on the 18th of the month. I set it up from her bank. I pushed it to deliver on the 18th of the month to American Express, and American Express charged us a late fee and an interest fee. And when I called them on that, they said, oh, well, delivery date doesn't mean that we actually process it on that date. So in the olden days, you could say, well, I sent it. It's postmarked on the 18th. So that means that you have to honor that as the date that, I sent it to you. They don't have to do that anymore. And with these relationships, they're kind of getting away with it and saying, well, delivery date is the 18th, and maybe we, but we didn't process it. We can't process immediately. So you have to send it earlier than the due date. And I fought with them on it, and they agreed to refund the late fee, but they wouldn't refund the interest fee. So I now have decided, fine, I'm gonna, send things 3 days earlier. So typically when I pay anybody online and I'm pushing the payment to them, I will set it for 3 days before that. And if there's a weekend, even earlier, because I want to make sure that the payment gets to them and that they're not going to charge a late fee. And they're all getting very crafty with these late fees. So it's better for us to just give them, a few extra days for delivery of those checks. And there's one other thing to explain is that different banks have electronic relationships with different vendors. So, for example, United Healthcare is a national vendor. Most of the banks will have a relationship that's electronic with those vendors. So when you set up something to pay, the bank doesn't physically cut a check that gets mailed to that vendor. They actually have an electronic payment relationship with them, and that will get paid through an electronic relationship. Some of the smaller vendors, let's say you have a landscaper, okay? The bank doesn't have an electronic relationship with that landscaper. It doesn't mean that you can't pay the bill with the online banking. It just means that the bank is going to cut a check. They physically print the check and send it by mail to that vendor because they don't have an electronic paying relationship with that vendor. So I know I answered that question. That was a long answer, Marie. I hope that I did justice to your question.
No, that was wonderful. Thank you very much.
Sure.
I have a question though, one more. I use online banking all the time. And a lot of times it will ask me now, do I want to stay on bill pay or do I want to use Zelle? And I never know, how do I know what companies accept Zelle?
That's interesting. So Zelle is, it really started as a person-to-person kind of means of paying someone. So I have several clients who pay me on Zelle or they pay me by Venmo. The money comes straight into my bank account. It's fantastic for me. But I have not seen, to use Zelle, you need someone's either cell phone number or an email account. And they also have to be established in Zelle to be able to do that. So for right now, I would say you would have to ask the payee if they want to be paid by Zelle. If you're talking about individual payees that you have that are not like transactional relationships between the bank and that payee, like a big national organization like that. I haven't seen that, Gloria. I guess that's why Gloria, sorry.
Joya.
Joya.
Yeah.
Oh, that's an I, sorry. I haven't seen the request. I've seen, do you want to transfer money by Zelle? But I haven't seen where I have pay-tos set up and it asks me that question. I've only seen that when I'm creating a new pay-to. And
Okay,
it asks,
yeah, I've been getting that a lot though. Yeah, that's what, and I always say, no, keep me on bill pay because I have no idea if they take Zelle or not.
exactly. And you're safe to do that. Eventually, they may start pushing that more and you may, if you're talking about paying person-to-person payments.
No, that I do.
Yeah, because I will say that with the mail, the way that it is today, I don't trust the mail as much as I used to. And so sending things, if I have the option to send somebody money by Zelle, if I have the information and I know that they can take a Zelle payment, I would probably do that, but I haven't seen the request come my way in that respect. when I'm paying them through online banking. So if you already have a pay to set up for them, I would just stick with that.
Thank you.
Sure.
I have a question. You mentioned something about Verizon. Is this Verizon cell phone company or Verizon Fios that would give you a $15 discount if you sign them up for something?
So don't quote me on that $15 discount. I mean, they've got like a different deal. It's actually, I'm not sure I think it may not have been 15. My husband was the one who made that deal with them, and it's still not working right. So, but I do have a client on she's got an AT&T cell phone, and I think for her, I think it was a $10 credit a month if she was willing to do an online bill pay, letting them pull from her account.
Thank you.
Sure. Anybody else?
Very good.
Looks
Please
like
come back.
Yeah.
So tell Michelle, I'd be happy to. Tell Michelle what you're interested in hearing from me on. And
Yep, absolutely. I actually had a question. My mute button got stuck. When you talked about the files for the medical bills, that was like 5 or 6 categories. So do you recommend a Pentaflex folder and then manila folders like with tabs inside of that? Or do you just have folder? Like, how do you set up, like, do you have a file cabinet with like Pentaflex and then individual files in it? What's the best way to do it?
It depends on what you have. I mean, I have, I don't know if you guys can see these file boxes. Some people use file boxes. This is one of my clients' files because I'm doing a Medicaid app for her. And so I needed 60 months of statements. So file boxes, if you don't have a file cabinet, you don't have room for a file cabinet, those file boxes are really good. And you can keep it by year. And then after 3 years, you can just toss, 3 years ago data. You could do it that way. Or I also have an old fashioned, I use Pentaflexes with folders inside, and I label the folder inside. But I think, if you have an accordion file, you could set up your medical bills and all of your paperwork in an accordion file. It really depends on, what your space is like and what your, what your preference is in terms of physical carrying.
Yeah, I find that sometimes I can set up a system that's so complicated I can't use it. So
I know. Well, that's the thing. And the one, that's why I was saying, like, with the bills, I personally do not set them up by month. I think it's not a bad idea. I just don't do that because then you've got to sift through a lot of things if you're looking for something.
right.
So I like to keep them by payee. You don't have to have a Pentaflex. You can have a Pentaflex for medical, and then you can put all those manila folders inside of that Pentaflex, that one hanging file. Might get kind of fat in 6 months, but so you'll have to see, like, it depends on how much you go to the doctor, and you have your son, right? Son. So, you've got his stuff, you've got your wife's stuff, it gets busy when you have several family members. So
maybe we each have our own medical file, and then within that, it's like, the insurance, and because I find that too, a lot of times doctors will send, I'll get a bill, and I'm like, I'm not paying this. The insurance pays it.
Exactly.
You've
got to hold these doctors. Everybody wants our money, and but they want it early. I mean, they're not. It's like it's almost. I mean, I have several elderly clients, and they are not, maybe so their vision's not so acute anymore. And so, it makes me crazy because I feel like these companies they're really trying to trick people when they send these invoices. And they keep telling you like, oh, we explain everything, what's on the invoice. But the fact is, you can really get taken advantage of if you're not careful. So,
And just to clarify, is that part of your service that you can help people with Medicaid applications? Or is that just
so
a,
this is my first Medicaid app, and I am charging my hourly rate for this Medicaid app for this person. But I know that, there are people who charge several $1,000s to do Medicaid apps these days. So I'm going to see how this one goes before I start advertising that I do Medicaid apps for people,
yeah,
because
yeah.
I may not be, you know, it may be better to leave it to people who really do know what they're doing, but I'm going to try.
Yeah.
Jeff Dimmerman, can you unmute yourself?
Yes, I can. Hello.
Hi. Are you a paper person? You have a stack of papers there. I'm curious.
No, I try to get rid of everything as soon as possible.
Good. Good. Are you do you work with, I love your image there. Do you work with helping people organize paperwork?
No, I just grabbed that off the internet for this Zoom thing.
Oh, I thought that was you. Beautiful.
No,
That's great.
Generic man with paper pile.
That's great. I think I'd like to use that image for my I think that's better than the one that I got.
Yeah, Jeff suggested, Victoria, Jeff suggested in his chat that when it comes in, just scan it and throw it out.
I
Yeah.
saw that. If you're somebody who wants to take the time to scan and name things, sure. I mean, if you want to do that, you can. But quite honestly, most of what you're getting in bills, if you have an online account, you can pull all that data. You don't need to scan. I mean,
Yeah.
you can just go to your bank and pull down the paperless statement,
Yeah.
from that month.
Right, I
You
just
can
mean
do
the
that with
important thing.
Verizon and PSE&G.
I just mean like your important medical bills and
Right.
insurance statements and things that you might need, rather than having all this paper and folders and pentaflexes and file cabinets.
I'm with you.
Store it all in your computer and back it up somewhere safe.
I'm with you. You know, it depends on your age and your comfort level. So for most of my clients, they're elderly and they like paper bills and they like to be able to go into the files to see them. Personally speaking, I don't get any of my bills by paper. None. Everything is paperless.
I have a suggestion. You can skip the scanning process and just take a good picture with a good camera or your phone, but take a good picture of all your documents and then just file it in your document department.
You can do that too. There's actually a great free app called Cam Scanner, CAMSCANNER.com, Cam Scanner. And you download it and you basically take a picture, but what it enables you to do is to treat it like it's a scanner. So you actually take a photo, and then if you have more than one page, you just keep going and it's all saved. Thank you. It's all saved in one file, and you can name the file. So I use that very frequently, and it's very nice because what it does is it actually like puts a frame around what it assumes is the size of the page that you're trying to scan.
Right.
And you can reshape that size if you want. So like sometimes I do receipts, and the receipts are really long, and it does one long scan of the receipt. It's fantastic. So it's a really handy free app.
I just have one other question for people. Does somebody have another question or a suggestion?
I do, Jackie. Victoria, you meant about shredding opportunities. Montclair was supposed to have a shred fest this spring, and then we got closed down and it got canceled. Is there a place to go to online where you can find shred fest coming up?
I live in Bergen County, and I just went to the Bergen County sanitation area, and I found it, or I just in the search I typed in shred, and I found it for Bergen County, because we also had one canceled, and then they had a second one for, I'd say, early August, and it was at the Middlesex County College, and the line, I mean, I was there about 15 minutes after it started, and the line was already like a mile down the road on Paramus Road, which is like a mile from the inside of the college. So my recommendation is go early, because I think people are catching on and they're starting to use this. So
Michelle, do you know of any coming up in Montclair?
I don't, but if you go, sometimes if you go to like, I know that
county too. Yeah, let me see.
Yeah, you can go, you can actually put in a search for community, put in your community. Sometimes like local churches, there are a bunch of different companies, but Shred It is one of them.
I just looked up Essex County shredding event. It looked like there was one on August 17th, 2020. So I just typed into Google, I put Essex County shred.
Yeah.
Oh, so that's just over.
Yeah.
Can
you see what's on
here, let me see.
Jackie, I'll let you know, because I'm going to talk to our green person, Gray Russell, and he'll have an answer for me.
Okay, great. Thank you. Appreciate it.
800 service.
Yeah, I was going to show you, but I'm not seeing the screen that I wanted to share with you, so never mind. So,
Victoria, it's Marie Claire again. Could you just tell us where you bought those plastic file boxes that you showed us? Where do you find those?
Staples has them.
Great, thank you.
All right, I think this is really helpful, and
Good. I'm so glad.
we have to have you back.
I promise that I won't. I mean, the traffic was like it was crazy out there.
I've been there. I mean, not in that particular spot, but for like no reason, or for weird roadblocks, and then they give you a detour, and then they don't tell you where to go next. Like every road seems to be detoured. It's crazy.
It was
but
terrible.
So much for being here today, and thanks everybody for coming on the call. Again, next week, just you could come to our online Edgemont classroom the old-fashioned way with the bit.ly/Edgemont class. You can come via the password, the meeting ID 818, starting 818, and the password starting 303. You can email me and say, I lost everything, I have no idea what you're talking about, and I'll email you and tell you how to get in. But you could also just go to lifelongmontclair.org and just click on that registration, and that will take you through, just so you can get more comfortable with it, so you don't miss out on anything, okay? And we thank you. And if you need any, Victoria's information, she did put it in the chat. Did you put it in the general chat? I think you did, right?
I did, and I'm also going to send you, Michelle, a document with some of the specifics about what to save and what to shred.
Great.
I'll put my information on that, and you Perfect. Can share that with everybody.
Good. And as always, if you think of it in 6 months from now, you need Victoria, you can always call me or text me or email me, and I'll give you her information. But thank you again. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon, and have a great weekend. Thanks, everybody.
Bye, everybody. Thanks a lot.